Tonight, game over for Don Cherry. A veteran hockey broadcaster is fired on Remembrance Day.
You love our way of life. You love our milk and honey.
Out of a job over his rant about poppies and immigrants.
It sends a very strong message to all Canadians.
The reckoning and the outrage. A stirring salute to service and sacrifice.
It was the most frightening thing I've ever done.
Powerful tributes for Canada's fallen and praise for those marching on. Plus, brutal conditions as a massive snowstorm bears down. A bitter reality on both sides of the Canada-U.S. border.
I wasn't expecting it this early.
CTV National News with Lisa Laflamme.
Good evening. In a country increasingly divided, on this day, Canadians unite. At the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, we as a Commonwealth nation come together to show respect. To remember the bravery and sacrifice of our armed forces, past and present. It's a military family as diverse as the country itself, and there's power in those 2 minutes of silence. This year, however, that silence was interrupted by a tone too offensive to ignore. Don Cherry, considered the last bastion of a bygone hockey era, unapologetic and untethered from the confines of political correctness, was fired today for an anti-immigrant outburst. After 40 years on Canadian airwaves, CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin on how his own words pierced the popularity that long protected him.
Bold suits and brash opinions, that is Don Cherry's style.
You people love you.
But to those asking for years just how far is too far for Cherry, this episode of Coach's Corner insulting immigrants was the answer.
You love our way of life. You love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that.
Within the hockey world and far beyond its borders, the backlash was immediate.
This is a country that's diverse, and I mean that those comments can't be said.
And it was just very disappointing because to hear those type of comments, because we have such great diversity, which you see here today.
The Canadian Broadcast Standards Council received so many complaints it stopped accepting them. And by afternoon, Cherry's bosses had benched him for good. Sportsnet said, following further discussions with Don Cherry, it has been decided it is the right time for him to immediately step down. The network also noted Cherry played a key role in growing the game over 40 years. From a rock'em sock'em coach to a staple of Saturday night hockey broadcasts.
Let's go! He was on Hockey Night in Canada, the #1 program in this country for years and years and years.
His firing lit up lines at call-in shows across the country and had Canadians talking.
I think he's just a very passionate Canadian, but we also have the opportunity to realize that we're diverse.
Some started an online campaign to bring him back, slamming his Remembrance Day dismissal.
I know Don Cherry's a true Canadian patriot.
It's kind of sad for him that he had to go out this way, but other than that, I think that probably the right decision was made.
It's a decision that comes after a long series of controversies. Rants about wimps wearing visors.
Most of the guys that wear them are European or French guys.
About women reporters in locker rooms, and about those fighting climate change.
Now, I'd like to ask you with your left-wing pinkle friends,
Yes.
what about the warming trend?
Most of those comments made while he was employed by the CBC that never fired him, but today said in a statement that it respects Sportsnet's decision that this is the right time for Don to step down.
Don Cherry was a Frankenstein created by CBC over the years, indulging him in what he said and what he did, giving him a break.
And the NHL said tonight that though it recognizes Don Cherry's 4 decades of service, today's decision was a justifiable response. Lisa.
All right, Geneviève Beauchemin in Montreal. Late tonight, Don Cherry spoke to Canadian press and said he could have kept his job if he'd agreed to become a, quote, tame robot who nobody would recognize. In Ottawa today, it was hard to find anyone without a poppy. 32,000 people joined together for the Remembrance Day ceremony at the National War Memorial. CTV's Ottawa Bureau Chief Joyce Napier on the powerful gathering.
A minute of silence on a biting cold morning to remember the sacrifices of the men and women in uniform. To pay homage to those who died so far from home.
It's important to think back about the sacrifices.
I want to help remember the fallen who died in sacrifice for our country.
The ceremony began with a parade of veterans. The country paused to honor its soldiers, from the elderly to the very young cadets.
At first, I wasn't too sure about doing cadets. It made me really nervous, and now I'm really, really happy to be here.
It was really cool to see a bunch of veterans here, and like a bunch of people who were in the Navy, Army, Air Force.
John Priest was in the Royal Regiment. He served in Holland during the Second World War.
I had the normal loyal to the country, like all the young boys did in those days. So I just went, and I don't like war. I think it's awful. I think we should do away with war. It was the most frightening thing I've ever done in my whole life.
A day also to remember the soldiers who are deployed today, and about Canada's military operations like the one in Mali.
We did very well. The Air Force and the medical branch developed a world-class medical evacuation capability that we're going to retain.
The Silver Cross mother, Ren Samson Dow, laid a wreath at the cenotaph. Her son, Matthew Dow, died in Afghanistan. She is carrying on his mission by promoting education for women and girls in that country. A ceremony for grieving families and war heroes.
The sincerity with which it's presented. There's the phony bone within 100 yards. Everybody enjoys participating, and they put their very best in it.
A testament to those who served, a day to say thank you.
There are fewer and fewer Second World War veterans each year. As of March, there were an estimated 33,000 in Canada. And Lisa, their average age is 94.
Oh, overwhelming. All right, Joyce Napier at the National War Memorial tonight. Thank you, Joyce. And if you were unable to watch the National Remembrance Day ceremony this morning, we've posted every moment on our website at ctvnews.ca. Canada's soldiers were also honored with silence and salutes and military parades right across the country today. Halifax held a special service at the Sailors' Memorial for those who served and died at sea. The bells rang out at Toronto's Old City Hall, where thousands gathered in gratitude under a heavy snowfall.
It's a lot less than what they endured, so for an hour of my time, it's nothing.
And on Winnipeg's Valor Road, a special ceremony honored 3 First World War veterans who all grew up on the same street and all received the Victoria Cross. 2 of them never came home. Pine Street was renamed Valor Road in their honor back in 1925. Certainly today's weather made some of those Remembrance Day ceremonies particularly biting. An Arctic blast swept in overnight and unleashed snow, wind, ice, and a sudden drop in temperature in parts of Quebec and Ontario. The same system is creating record-breaking cold and travel chaos in the United States. CTV's Heather Wright on the dangerous dose of early winter.
Snow and ice made for a treacherous landing for an American Eagle flight.
Emergency alert.
That skidded off the runway at Chicago's O'Hare Airport this morning. The wing scraped the snow after part of the landing gear collapsed.
That was our second landing attempt. The first one, we went back up after we noticed conditions were bad. We made a loop for about 20 minutes.
No one was injured, but some passengers criticized the decision to land.
There was no visibility at all. You know, the first visibility of the city, we got it when we're like maybe 50 feet from the ground. I mean, that's dangerous, and you don't need to do that.
An early blast of winter canceled more than 1,500 flights in the U.S.
I wasn't expecting it this early.
In Toronto, a 36-year snowfall record was broken.
This is just the start.
The bad weather is expected to last overnight, and some parts of southern Ontario could see as much as 30 centimeters. In Montreal, people lined up early this morning for snow tires. hoping to avoid what happened to this city bus. It slid down a street during rush hour and was stuck between the sidewalk and median. Snow tires are mandatory in Quebec, and some say they should be everywhere.
It should be a law. If you don't want snow tire, you get charged.
Well, a few new records could be set in Canada as this storm moves through. The impact is expected to be much greater south of the border. The U.S. National Weather Service says as many as 300 cold temperature records could be broken over the next few days.
Wow, too soon, way too soon. All right, Heather, thanks for this tonight. Extreme heat and dry conditions have created a disaster in southeastern Australia, where dangerous fires grew again today. A week-long state of emergency was declared today in New South Wales, prompting evacuation orders for people in rural areas. 600 schools were also closed as a precaution. At least 3 people have died and more than 150 homes were destroyed. The small African nation of Gambia is leading one of the world's most significant legal challenges, accusing Myanmar of genocide at the top UN court. The case was filed today in The Hague and accuses Myanmar's government of a brutal campaign of murder and sexual assault in the forced expulsion of 700,000 Rohingya Muslims. The world-famous White Helmet rescuers do what they can to save people from brutal violence in Syria. But today the organization is deeply grieving the sudden loss of one of its founders. Former British Army officer James Lemesureur's body was discovered near his apartment in Turkey. Police are investigating the circumstances. The 48-year-old trained the White Helmet volunteers who've saved thousands of lives in that country's civil war. Hong Kong had one of its most violent 24 hours since protests began 5 months ago. 2 people were rushed to hospital in critical condition and more than 260 others were arrested. CTV's Vanessa Lee on the intensifying clashes.
An already chaotic situation turned even more volatile today after police shot a 21-year-old protester at close range.
They are not doing anything violent and the police just shoot them.
In a separate incident, a man who confronted a group of pro-democracy supporters was doused with a flammable liquid and set on fire. Hong Kong's chief executive condemned the violent scenes, describing protesters as the enemy of the people.
We will spare no effort in finding ways and means that could end the violence in Hong Kong.
Heated clashes continued into the night. Their anger is charged in part by the first protest-related death last Friday when a student fell from a parking garage. Demonstrators hurled Molotov cocktails, set fires, vandalized shopping malls, and blocked roads in more than 100 locations. Police used tear gas to disperse the crowds.
I do not agree that our officers is out of control in our use of force, but of course we are under great pressure.
The protests began over a proposed extradition bill. 5 months later, they've spiraled into a movement for political reform. Their goal is greater autonomy from China and police accountability. Many are undeterred by violence or potential arrest.
I won't care because if I don't do something, I think the future of Hong Kong will be broken.
The Hong Kong police force defended the officer who fired his weapon today, but suspended another who deliberately drove his motorcycle into a group of demonstrators. There are renewed fears the violence will continue to escalate, with protests showing no signs of letting up. Lisa.
All right, Vanessa, with the latest on the turmoil in Hong Kong. In Chile, after 3 weeks of violent anti-government protests over economic inequality, the Chilean president has promised to draft a new constitution. That wasn't enough, though, to appease the protesters who clashed with security forces again today. At least 20 people have died since the start of that uprising. We are going to take a 30-second break, but coming up, Boeing's push to get the MAX 8 back in the air.
It has been a big black mark on their record.
A controversial move in the wake of 2 deadly crashes. Plus, the poppy thief feathering a nest in the most unforgettable way. 2 weeks after issuing a scathing critique of Conservative leader Andrew Scheer, former Cabinet Minister Peter MacKay now says he stands behind him as leader. MacKay told CTV Power Play's Don Martin he won't vote against Scheer in April's leadership review.
Well, Andrew Scheer is going to face a mandatory review, Don. That's part of the Conservative Constitution. So that will be for he and the membership. I'll be there, and I'll be voting that no.
His support follows recent comments where MacKay compared Scheer's election defeat to, quote, having a breakaway on an open net and missing. MacKay's name had been widely floated as a potential leadership candidate. The plane parked worldwide after twin disasters could soon be airborne again. Today, Boeing announced a new plan for the 737 MAX, aiming to have the troubled jet cleared for takeoff as soon as January. CTV's Kevin Gallagher has that story tonight.
Boeing believes the return of its 737 MAX airliner is on the horizon after 2 deadly crashes forced aviation authorities around the world to ground the planes.
All the regulatory bodies for all the airlines around the world are going to be wanting to test this system out to make sure that the fixes are in place are actually good fixes and nothing else is going to go wrong.
The company still needs to satisfy regulators and, most importantly, regain public trust.
In the past, people just got on the plane, didn't know or worry about what kind of plane it was. In this case, they're going to think about it, so they're going to have to make sure that they're squeaky clean and that the regulated authorities in the U.S., Europe, and so on are absolutely on board with the safety of the plane.
346 people were killed in the Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines crashes just 5 months apart. Both were linked to an anti-stall system that malfunctioned and pushed the nose to the ground. 2 weeks ago, Boeing's CEO was confronted by U.S. lawmakers and angry family members demanding answers.
We've made mistakes, and we got some things wrong.
After the shocking testimony, a U.S. union representing thousands of flight attendants expressed concern about its members working in the planes and questioned whether regulators have the resources to properly investigate Boeing. Transport Canada will conduct an independent review on the updated Boeing planes before any Canadian carriers will be allowed to fly the jets. Kevin Gallagher, CTV News, Ottawa.
Still ahead, we're tracking another remarkable development for former Humboldt Bronco Ryan Straknitsky. The spinal cord surgery helping Ryan regain his strength. On the markets today, the TSX rose 5 points, the Dow Jones gained 10, the loonie was up slightly but still below 76 cents U.S., and oil fell 38 cents to 56.86 a barrel.
I'm Amanda Debison. Tonight, lest we forget. From Halifax to St. John, on this Remembrance Day, we share stories and honor our veterans. Service and sacrifice tonight on CTV News at 11:30.
This Is Us, all new, Tuesday, only on CTV.
Hey, does anyone have a charger? We're dying.
Yeah, just down here.
I'm dying.
Oh no, I'm dying. I'm dying.
And we're all set.
Okay.
Hey, before you go, have you thought about investing?
I'm already investing with Questrade.
Online?
Yeah, I do everything online. It's way easier.
But James, your parents have been investing with us for decades.
Yeah, but times have changed.
It's time to switch to Questrade, Canada's fastest growing online broker and rated #1 for customer service.
You need a Toyota truck.
A truck that can keep up with your pace.
A truck that can set the pace.
Handle everything you throw at it.
Handle everything that gets thrown at you.
Take care of your demands.
Take care of your squad.
Thinking on your feet is an active truck.
Forging your own path is an active truck.
The Toyota Tundra.
The Toyota Tacoma.
Made for acts of truck.
Just between us, cleaning with a mop and bucket is such a hassle. Ugh. Well, I switched to Swiffer WetJet, and it's awesome. It's an all-in-one that absorbs dirt and grime deep inside, and it helps prevent streaks and haze. Stop cleaning and start Swiffering.
Here's how to strike fear in winter. With methodical precision, the shark shovel attacks. Easily tearing through freshly fallen snow, it devours its unsuspecting frosty victims. Hard-packed snow may think its icy exterior will protect it, but with a mere flick of its maneuverable head, the shark shovel's sturdy, deadly teeth bear down. Mercifully, it's over in mere moments. Though it may seem unfair, it is nature's way. The Shark Shovel, only $34.97, only at Home Hardware. Here's how.
You could tell her that her eyes sparkle like the first stars on a summer night. Or that her voice is the sweetest sound you've ever heard. But you'd never say it like that. That's not you.
Keep showing up, no matter what the odds are against us. Keep fighting. Keep making a difference.
Get into The Resident. All new, Tuesday at 8, 9 Mountain, only on CTV.
We have another amazing update tonight on Ryan Sritnitsky's paralyzed from the chest down in the Humboldt Broncos bus crash.
Down slow, can you make it down slow?
This new video shows the 20-year-old moving his leg up and down without any assistance. It's been a week since his spinal surgery in Thailand to stimulate his nerves. And we've all been following Alex Trebek's difficult journey with pancreatic cancer, which he's handled with humor and honesty. Tonight on Jeopardy, he also showed a lot of heart when a contestant's final answer was both wrong and right.
Let's take a look at your response. Did you come up with the right one? No? What is "we love you" out? That's very kind of you. Thank you. Costs you $19.95. You're left with $5. Okay.
Whoa, okay. We need something to smile about after that. And we have it. We have a bird's eye view of Remembrance Day in Australia. A crafty pigeon was stealing poppies from the tomb of the unknown soldier to build a nest at the Australian War Memorial. And it couldn't be more fitting. Pigeons were used during the Second World War to carry messages when wireless radios failed. And we learned that on Jeopardy. Coming up, 3 generations of service, one family's remarkable Remembrance Day tradition.
Paul Davis. We're not a name you need to know all the time. Water, fire, and storms cause serious property damage. When it happens, call Paul Davis, because this is no time for second best.
Unwrap a Deal is back at Kia.
Now, how am I going to get it out of here?
And the Sorrento and Sportage are here to check everything off your holiday wish list. With Yuvo Intelligence, warm up your SUV with remote start, so it's ready before you are. And with a full suite of heated features, plus Dynamax all-wheel drive, our SUVs are the gifts that keep on giving. During Unwrap a Deal, you could win up to $10,000 in holiday bonuses. Plus now, get Black Friday offers all month.
Come on!
When the makers of all this helpful stuff make a phone, you get something that you can use without even having to touch it. You get a Google Assistant that gets it all done fast. Helps you get the perfect photo, even in the dark. You even get the stars. Introducing a phone made the Google way. Google Pixel 4.
So who is he?
His name is Jack Ryan. Business or pleasure, Jack?
I'm here for work.
Let me guess. Finance.
How did you know? And what about you?
Actually, pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
With Export Development Canada, risk doesn't stop you.
A Chilean company called for 30,000 brake pads. No deposit. So I said, why put the brakes on now?
We landed a software contract in France, but needed more cash flow. I said, when do you need the prototype?
As the international risk experts for more than 75 years, EDC will help you take your business to new markets with confidence. Together, let's take on the world.
Need a change of scenery? Kayak searches hundreds of travel sites, even our competitors, so you can be confident you're getting the right flight at the best price. Kayak. Search one and done.
Everyone knows it's hard to stop a train. Unstoppable doesn't just mean our products will keep going. It means we will too. It's hard to stop a train.
I grew up in a dairy farm. I really enjoy what I do. I truly love working with the animals. Animal care is exceptionally important to me and our family. Pure dairy oil comes from a good place.
We leave you tonight with a story that embodies the purpose of Remembrance Day, to make sure lessons of the past don't fade with each new generation. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Melanie Nagy has a microcosm of Canada's military family.
Left, right, left.
On a day dedicated to remembering service and sacrifice, John Cumbers, Joy Dockery, and Alexander Thomas stand together, a military family 3 generations strong. At 93, John is the oldest. He was a rear gunner in the Royal Canadian Air Force during the Second World War.
I had my 18th and 19th birthdays in the Air Force.
Joy also served, but for her, it was the Navy from 1968 to 1972.
It was the right thing to do, serve for your country, so I did it without even thinking.
And then there is 24-year-old Alexander. He's also in the Air Force, stationed at CFB Trenton. Every year, grandson, grandmother, and great-grandfather spend Remembrance Day together. Like so many, the trio firmly believe Canada's soldiers should never be forgotten, and that the freedom they fought to preserve should never be taken for granted.
Well, every year we have fewer veterans, and just every year is just, I want to make the most of it.
With the laying of wreaths, the family's tradition comes to an end for another year. Like all who serve, their selfless dedication to the country they so love is something Canadians are grateful for. Melanie Nagy, CTV News, Vancouver.
It's such a meaningful family tradition right across this country. So on this 100th anniversary of Remembrance Day, we pay tribute to those who fought for the freedoms we must never take for granted. I'm Lisa Laflamme. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching and good night.
This is our future.